Well, good morning from the Renault Owners Club and Renault Classic Car Club stand here at the NEC in Birmingham. I hope you can hear me okay. Actually, the microphone I normally use for these videos didn't seem to want to pair up with my camera this morning, so as I say, hopefully you can still hear me. Last year I was on this stand. It doesn't seem like 12 months ago, when we had the 50 years of the Renault 5. We had a really nice selection of cars which I knew quite a bit about. This morning, however, we do have a bit more of a mixed bag of vehicles to have a look at, so let's crack on with the show. Right, so first car I'm going to take a look at on the stand today is this gorgeous Renault 8. Now the Renault 8 naturally is a car that is way before my time, but it's one that I've become quite fond of in recent years. Now this is from an era where Renault actually put the engines at the back of the car rather than at the front. Obviously these were the old Sierra series engines, the 956. I think over time they grew. We had an 1100. Of course the cars everyone reveres are the Gordini models, which obviously do fetch quite a premium these days. Quite a compact cabin, but still a nice little car. Well, this is my first opportunity to sit inside a Renault 8. Yeah, surprisingly comfortable in here, really sort of squishy seats. Pedals very slightly offset to the left, same with the steering column, but not by a lot really, all things considered. I love this strip speedometer as well. Yeah, obviously it is quite a compact car in here. Obviously, even if you went to the larger Renault 10, the cabin would have still been the same. You would have just got a bit more space at either end of the car. Yeah, this is wonderful. Really like the colour of this interior as well. A little pull strap there for the door, this little tiny chrome window winder. I don't think I've ever seen more spindly stalks as well on the column here. Yeah, I suppose it's just a different time, isn't it? Marvellous. Because you've got no engine, we've got what is commonly known as a frunk, or a front trunk. So load area in the front of the car, but something I didn't realise until quite recently is, can you guess where the spare wheel is in one of these cars? Well, it is at the front, but it's not where you might expect it to be. It's actually underneath the car. And to access it, you actually pull a tab inside, panel drops down at the front to reveal the spare wheel. Yeah, marvellous car. But Renault, although they did have some rear engine cars in the range, starting with the 4CV and 750, obviously we had the Dauphine, which was replaced by the 8. There was also the Renault 10. The Renault 10, which we haven't got on stand today, actually had the same main body construction as one of these. In fact, I'm told by someone more in the know that what a lot of people do when they're restoring Renault 8s is they actually, if they need a Renault, if they need doors, they actually source them from a Renault 10, because Renault 10s are typically more affordable to buy than Renault 8s, and they're the exact same doors. So take your Renault 10 doors and you can restore your Renault 8. The 10, as I say, is the same main construction with a few minor differences. You've got a slightly longer front end with a bit more space in there and a little bit more on the rear end as well. But not all Renaults have the engines at the back. We did actually have the Frégate, which was a front engine rear drive car. Not here today, but if you want to see one of those, check out my coverage from Simply French at Bewley. I think Renault was actually famed as being one of the few manufacturers at the time to actually have rear engined rear drive, front engined rear drive, and went on to front engined and front wheel drive cars. Now we will actually be taking a look at one of those cars next. This morning I have the distinct pleasure of meeting a fellow club member whose adventures with his Renault 4 I've been reading about quite a bit over the past few years in the club magazines. Brian.
Yes.
Renault 4, now you've been all over in this car, haven't you?
I have. I've had several trips to France in it, but I've done 2 big trips to Italy. One was last year and one was this year.
Yeah, one was a Renault 4 event, weren't it, I believe?
They were both Renault 4 events in Italy. One of them was in Sardinia with one of the Italian clubs, the Giusto Storico, and the other one was in Tuscany, organised by DeMarco Cars.
Right.
And it's a big event. It was 150 cars there.
Yeah.
Really big event. But it also took in 2 CVs as well.
Okay.
He sells parts for 2 CVs at Renault, Fords and
Right,
Volkswagen.
okay.
So he's got an interest in those 3 cars.
Yeah.
It was a really lovely event.
I know the Renault 4 obviously was pretty much Renault's answer to the 2CV anyway, weren't it?
Well, it was really.
Albeit a bit later.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Citroën weren't too keen on it, but I think they came to an agreement in the end. Yes. It was a very successful car.
Yeah. Obviously they're a very robust vehicle. I remember the old film reels from crossing Africa and places in these.
Yes.
Obviously you're proving that the cars are still up to it.
Well, yes, they are, but there's not many left now. They're quite an unusual car, but yes, they are. They're a very well-built car.
Yeah.
Just like any other classic car, you have to look after them and keep them maintained, and they'll give you good service.
Yeah, obviously there's a few idiosyncrasies with, not only with the 4s, with one of the other cars we've got on stand here, in that obviously they're a front mid-engine, aren't they, with the, the gearbox ahead.
Yes.
I always love with these how the gear lever, when you look under the bonnet, you can actually see the gear linkage running across above the engine.
Yes.
To obviously connect to the gearbox.
Yes.
And the other thing obviously with these cars is that wheelbase, how it's got a different length wheelbase on one side to the other.
There's a 2-inch difference, 50mm difference from one side to the other.
Yeah.
There's a torsion bars are one in front of the other.
Yeah.
So, but you don't notice it.
The upshot of that though is record-breaking suspension travel, isn't it? I mean,
yes, it is.
You see these rock crawlers, don't you, on these programs where they've got mega articulation on the axles.
That's right.
But I think one of these would probably give it a run for its money.
I think it probably would actually. I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
They are an all-terrain vehicle, aren't they?
Yeah, they certainly are. Certainly are. So, what is it? Obviously, we've established they are a go-anywhere sort of vehicle. What is it about the 4 that really captivates you?
I got into 4 ownership by accident. A friend of ours wanted one, and I found it for her. I went and collected it. I live in Cornwall, and I went up to Kent to pick it up, and I drove it home, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a fantastic little car. And a couple of years after that, she moved away and the car needed looking after, and I took it over. I looked after it. And eventually it became my car. And that's how I got into 4s. It was completely by accident.
Right.
It was never on the radar as a classic car, I have to say that. Apologies for that, for me. But I really got hooked.
Yeah.
And having looked back, that's 13 years ago.
Yeah. That's smashing. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's such a usable car. I mean,
yes.
the 4 was a car I never really considered. I was quite into Renault 5s. But
well, you're younger than me, so
yeah,
it's a generation thing, isn't it?
But now getting older and having an allotment to potter about on, I mean,
ideal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's the space in these. Can you remove all the seats and everything?
Take
like
the back seat out, you make it into a van.
Yeah, so a bit like the 2CV then.
Exactly.
You strip everything away. Of course, unlike the 2CV, you've got the hatchback on here. So
you have.
It really is a small van, isn't it?
It is indeed.
In essence.
When I go on my long trips, I take all my camping gear and I take the back seat out. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So I save £35 in weight.
Yeah.
And extra space for the camping gear.
Marvellous.
So it works fine.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. That's been great talking to you.
You're very welcome.
And from one Renault 4 to another, obviously we've mentioned that there were commercial variants of the Renault 4. Renault did actually build a van version. Brian, you'll have to correct me on the designation of that one.
It's the F4 Fourgonette, yes.
Fourgonette.
And the F6, which was the longer version.
Right,
Slightly
okay.
longer wheelbase.
Obviously, the vehicle we've got here today, actually in the background, we've actually got a pickup, which I understand wasn't a standard model from Renault. It's actually, there was a small number of vehicles, only a few hundred commercials that were actually converted to pickups as well.
I believe that's like 200, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
There was a factory in or a garage in Somerset that did it.
Right.
The owner is here today, so you can have a
chat
with him.
If I get a chance to later
yes,
on.
I think you should. He'll tell you all about it. He restored that vehicle, and I believe from what he said, it was pretty bad shape when he did it. So
right.
He did a good job. It's
Excellent.
a very rare car.
Smashing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, lots still to see and do here, so we better crack on and see a bit more.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This book by club member and author Mark Bradbury could be the perfect Christmas gift for the Renault 4 lover in your life. Currently on offer on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the video description. So I've got fellow club member Peter here with me now. Peter's got a Renault 12 that he's actually had in his possession since the mid-1980s. A car that he bought with not many miles on, but over the years, I think you've got about 100,000 miles on it now?
Yeah, about 104,000. Yeah.
And it's a regular at club events and shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, now these marked a bit of a move for Renault into front engine, front wheel drive, didn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was a very popular saloon in the 70s and 80s. As I say, this particular one, as I say, it's been in the family 38 years, now 48 years old. My late uncle found it 10 years old with 5,000 mile on, and out of them 10 years, the old lady that had it from new hadn't driven it for 4 years.
Right.
And it had been stored in the garage. Unfortunately, she'd never moved it, and obviously the brakes started it, the brakes and the engine had completely seized.
Yeah.
And when my uncle asked me to go and have a look at it, I said, yeah, you know, we could probably do it. And I spent a week. I released all the brakes, new seals, calipers down, and then the engine was the main problem. I tried everything and I just couldn't move it.
Right.
So I ended up in the end completely stripping the engine, liners and pistons out, released all the pistons, cleaned it all up, put it all back again, new gaskets, new battery, new coolant, new oil.
Yeah.
And from that day to this, when I'd done it, 3 turns on the key,
Yeah.
and up it fired.
Yeah.
And from that day to this, it's never let me down.
And what engine's in this one, Peter?
1289.
1289,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And it's a mid-spec Bouts, is it, the TL?
Yeah, the TL, yeah.
Yeah.
There was the L, which was like the base model. The TL was the middle range.
Yeah.
And then the TS, which was the sporty one.
Yeah.
Had the Weber carburetors on that, like, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's 1 or 2 members with the TSs.
Yeah.
You know, and there's quite a few TLs about.
Yeah.
I think in the UK, I think it's still about 50
Yeah.
registered.
I know, obviously, even though they're not the largest of cars, they were renowned for being quite a comfortable car, weren't they?
Very, very, very comfortable. Yeah. As I say, I've actually had the 2 front seats redone this year.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them, the springing had gone quite, and the vinyl was cracking.
Right.
So I've had them redone this year. So, but basically everything else other than that, I did the paint in 2015.
Yeah.
Did a complete strip down. Although I did all the mechanical myself. You know, take all the lights out, the bumpers out, the doors off, bonnet off, everything. The body shop lads that I've known for 50 years, they screened it inside with the masking and did me a complete respray.
Yeah.
So it's really better than when it comes from Renault.
Yeah. It does. It looks, I mean, under the lights in here, it looks fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really nice metallic blue colour as well.
And the saviour to it, really, the old lady that had it, she had it dinner trolled under seals,
Right.
which was an extra.
Yeah.
And all the doors and everywhere is wax oiled.
Yeah.
The plugs are still there, and when I took those door cards off, you know, on the doors, the wax oil was as good then, now, as what it was 40 odd years ago.
Yeah. And the car's actually got a bit of interesting history because this has appeared on television, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was in Ireland at the Gordon Bennett show in Southern Ireland, and I got a phone call from a guy supposedly from the BBC.
Right.
And as we have a bit of banter between the lads, you know, and the club and different ones, and my brother-in-law and different, I thought it was a wind-up. And I said to this guy, well, who are you, like? He said, my name's Robert so-and-so from the BBC. I said, all right. I said, how have you got my name? How do you know about me, like? He said, I've got it through the Owners Club. He said, we're looking for a 1973 Renault 12 to appear on Life on Mars.
Yeah.
On the television series, the detective series.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, it'll be in Manchester, which is only 20 miles away from me.
Yeah.
he said, we'll pay you. He said, if you bring it, we'll pay you like it's about. It'd just be a bit different, really. So
Yeah.
I did 2 days with it, and yeah, it was certainly a bit different. That. Yeah.
Excellent. Just one thing, that obviously these cars, the interior I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking those front seats and everything can be folded sort of flat to make a...
Yeah, they do.
So
They wind down.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's almost like a little...
Yeah.
You're sleeping if you had to, yeah?
When I've done the shows up in North Wales, in London, a few years ago now, my wife won't let me do it now, but if you wind them right down, you can make a double bed out of it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's
Brilliant.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously the 12, as I say, did mark a bit of a move for Renault away from the rear engine cars.
Yeah.
So in some respects they were quite sort of advanced, but in another way they were quite traditional, still being a 3-box saloon.
Yeah.
And perhaps the biggest competitor to this car would have been Renault 16, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, there's the 16. There's the 16, isn't it?
Yeah, so obviously the 16...
a little bit more luxurious
Yes.
than the hatchback.
Yeah.
That's the difference, yeah.
Yeah, but was it one of the first hatchbacks, I think?
It was the first one in the UK.
Yeah.
First one in the country.
Yeah.
Followed that was the Maxi.
Yeah.
BMC Maxi.
Right, so the 16 got there first then.
Definitely the first one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember at a show in Cambridge. There was a guy that had got a 16 for sale, and in the 70s, Renault only did 2 metallic colours.
Right.
He did the blue, which that is, and the green.
Okay.
And this guy had got the green one for sale, and it was a beauty.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always liked the 12. There's just something a little bit different than the 16 to the 12.
Yeah.
And it's obviously the hatchback, like, you know.
Yeah. Obviously, going back to the 12, they did actually later do them as Datchas as well, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. After 1980, it was a cooperative Renault and Dacia in Romania.
Yeah.
And there's 1 or 2 lads that I meet up with quite regularly from Romania, and their father had one and the grandfather had one, you know, and obviously there's a lot of Romanian people living in England now.
Yeah.
When you see them at the show and they say, oh, my granddad had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously the Dacia Renault connection actually goes back a bit further than people might think. Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, that was 1980 that, when these finished. These were like 70 to 80 over here. Yeah. 1969 in France, but 70 over here, like, yeah.
Excellent. Right.
And 2019 was the 50th anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah, and I took this back over for the anniversary in southern France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was 260 12s.
Right.
Mark 1s, Mark 2s, because this is a Mark 1, and this went from like 70 to 75.
Right.
And then from 75 to 80 was the Mark 2.
Yeah.
Slightly different bumpers, slightly different backlights, slightly different front lights, but
I mean, it's very much it's got that very sort of French 1970s small saloon. I mean, it reminds me somewhat of the Peugeots as well.
Yeah.
Especially sort of towards this back end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realise as well because it's quite an understated car, but there's little details such as I'm only just noticing now this rear glass being sort of concaved, which is something again I've never really noticed before on the 12.
Yeah, as I say, they were a very, very popular family saloon, 70s and 80s, and it's surprising now the people that come, to the shows and say, "Oh, my dad had one." I can remember as kiddies, like, it's sitting in the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
A very hot sunny day, the kids jumping in the back with the shorts on and the vinyl seats.
On the vinyl seats, yeah. Health and safety wouldn't have it now, would they? No. But again, I mean, for families, using these cars, compared to the Renault 8 before it, it must have felt thoroughly modern.
Yeah, and as I say, more spacious, internal spacious as well, like.
Yeah. Well, that's smashing. Thank you very much, Peter. Renault 16, again, another model that is a bit before my time, but I'm really starting to fall for these. Legendary ride characteristic on these cars. Again, you've got all that suspension travel in them. Quite stylish as well. I do like the front end. A lot of people do say that when the Laguna and the Megans came out in the 1990s, the front end of the 16 was a very much an influence, a styling cue that was sort of carried over. Now, one car I did want to mention that sadly we don't have on stand today is a Renault 11, which actually we would have been marking 40 years of. We did hope to have one lined up, but it just didn't come to fruition, which just sometimes that's the way things go with these kind of events. But we do fortunately have another car on the stand today, which is celebrating a milestone birthday. Renault Twingo Mark 1. We never got them here in the UK, and who would have thought it? 30 years ago this year, since the Mark 1 Renault Twingo was launched. We do actually have a few on the Renault Owners Club and Renault Classic Car Club stand, but they are far from standard. This particular one here behind me has had the 1200 engine removed, and what we've actually got is the K4M 1.6 litre 16 valve engine, which could be found in the, I think this one came out of a Renault Clio. Of course, it weren't just a simple engine swap though in this car, because there's been a few other modifications as well. This one has got Yamaha R1 throttle bodies on there as well. Obviously ECU's been swapped out and things. This car now producing 148 brake horsepower. No Mark 1 Twingo ever produced anything like that kind of power. This must be a real pocket rocket. Obviously there are a few changes on the outside, such as these alloy wheels, obviously the holes that are cut in the bonnet to accommodate some of the engine modifications. We've also got some seats out of the Clio Renault Sport in there as well. But it's not the only modified Clio on the stand here today, because we've got something that's potentially even more berserk. It's a well-known fact that the pandemic has been responsible for quite a few rather strange creations. The brainchild of a skilled engineer who took a Renault Twingo, took the engine out of the front and basically started afresh. What we've got in this car is a 1.2 litre TCE engine, but it's not located where you might expect it to be. In this particular car, it's mounted amidship, so very much like a modern interpretation of the Clio V6, and of course even more so the Renault 5 turbos that came before, obviously those being a much smaller car. So I'm with fellow Renault fanatic Chris. Now, one of the Renaults that stole Chris's heart is the little Twingo. Chris, this stand that you've got here today, we've got a few variations of the Twingo one, haven't we?
Yeah, we have everything from 93 up until the very end of the line, 2007, the run-out model, actually one of the very last Twingos made. And of course you go from a very basic car in 93 up to I would say a more luxurious car in 2007 with air conditioning, power steering, panoramic glass sunroof, all that kind of things. So,
yeah. Obviously at launch you had one trim level, didn't we, with one engine choice in these cars?
That's right, yeah, one car for one price, very much so. And your only options were really panoramic sunroof, fabric folding sunroof, or air conditioning at the time. But of course later on the Twingo became more diversified. Yeah,
and obviously when obviously this was one of the cars under Patrick Leclermont, and a few things they did, they pushed the wheels out into the corners, they actually widened the track, didn't they, on the cars, but to save money the engine was carried over, so it used the old Cleon 1200cc engine in the early cars.
Yes, it was very much built to a price, you know. And but I think driving a Twingo, as I do, I live in London, and driving my Twingos, I have more than one. Actually, okay, the car was built to a price, but they're very enjoyable, and you don't feel like you're driving the cheapest Renault in the range.
No, definitely not. And sadly, obviously, we never got these Mark 1s in the UK. They were all left-hand drive. My dad actually was quite keen on the Twingo, but ended up with a couple more Renault 5, the Campus Prima models, which continued on sale alongside the Clios here in the UK. But the Renault 5 was a good little car, but obviously the Twingo did look a lot more modern. Of course, the Twingo is quite unique in that it's a monobox.
That's right.
So it's pretty much like the Renault Espace.
It is, and of course the later Renault Megane Scenic, which I also own as well. And I think that the little mono Space trilogy is quite something quite special, actually.
Yeah. Now the concept for this car actually was presented prior to Patrick's time with Renault, but the board didn't go for it, did they? And the car was actually, the prototype was put away to one side. And when Patrick took over, he sort of pulled the car out of storage and sort of pushed the concept, didn't he?
He did. It was a much smaller. Excuse me. It's been a very long and busy weekend. Very wonderful weekend, though. I'm losing my voice. Patrick pulled out this car from storage, a lot smaller than the finished Twingo, actually.
Oh, right.
And of course, it didn't have its cute, some might say, froggy face. So he added that and made it into the car that we know and love today, 30 years later.
Yeah, and obviously the thing with these cars is he wanted something that had character, didn't he? A car with personality. And obviously the early cars, we had a choice of, was it 4 colours, and there was all sort of quite bright colours. Interestingly, one of them, what looks like purple, is actually
Ultramarine blue.
Ultramarine blue. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
And I think the story behind that was because there was some purple represented something, didn't it, in a certain...
Yes, as far as I understand, the president of Renault at the time did not really want to have a purple Twingo in the range. So Patrick came on and the president of Renault got on very well. And so Patrick presented this colour to the president as ultramarine blue, not purple.
Yeah.
And that's how that came to be.
And it was the exact same colour, weren't it? Just a different name.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm pretty much wearing it today, actually.
But yeah, obviously like you said, the later Twingos, they sort of evolved through, was it 4 phases? And I've actually sat in an Initial model, which is the ultra luxurious leather interior, panoramic glass sunroof.
Yeah.
Very unlike the original Twingos that went on sale.
Completely opposite ends of the spectrum, really, and I have to say I love them all.
Yeah, obviously there is a lot more that you can go into with Twingo than I've really got time for today. If you want more information on the Twingo, though, I suggest you check out the book that Chris is writing. Now, it's not quite ready yet, obviously. As soon as it is, I will be leaving a link in the video description. But Chris, if you want to tell us a little bit about how you're getting on with that book.
Yeah, sure. At the moment I'm writing a book about the first generation Twingo. The model obviously sold between 93 and 2007, and I've been really lucky to delve through some archives, Renault's archive particularly, and find some new information, certainly new information to me, and also some very rare images. And I have to say, many of the people involved in the Twingo story who were there at the time have been so generous to me in sharing their story and sharing behind the scenes information and images. So I'm really excited to be able to publish that book, which is out in 2024.
Excellent. Well, I've already got my name down for a copy of that book, so
Thank you.
Yeah, smashing. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Mark.
So opposite our stand at the Renault Owners Club and Renault Classic Car Club, we've got the combined Renault Alpine Owners Club and the Club Alpine Renault stand. Hopefully I've got that right. Now, last year I actually did quite a comprehensive tour of this stand, assisted by one of the club members. Last year they had quite a selection of cars. In fact, I think they had pretty much one of all the main models throughout the brand's history, with the exception of some of the more obscure race cars, of course. I will actually leave a link to that video in here so you can check that out at a later date from last year, because I think that was a really good tour of the stand. It does seem to be primarily the A110s, the older ones, and there is a modern one on here as well. Who knows in the future where the brand's going though? I mean, we've been teased with photos of the new electric Renault 5 that's coming. We have actually seen some pictures of an Alpine model as well. So who knows? That may be one of the next future models that we're going to see when the 5 is released in 2024. This first instalment from the 2023 Classic Motor Show here at the Birmingham NEC has focused on Renault. If you happen to be a Renault fan yourself, why not check out the Renault Owners Club and the Renault Classic Car Club on Facebook completely free. I've actually been helping out on their combined club stand today. But to get the most out of either of those clubs, why not consider becoming a paid up member? I am indeed a member of both of these clubs. In a world where costs seem to be spiralling all the time, both of these clubs have kept their prices competitively low. As a full club member, you can enjoy the many member benefits, including discounts from insurance partners, access to technical and parts support, amongst many other things. But my favourite member benefit is probably the club magazines. I look forward to both of them arriving through my letterbox on a regular basis. The Renault Classic Car Club has their Le Renault magazine, which is a quarterly magazine. The Renault Owners Club, their magazine is Renault's and is an A4 magazine, which arrives 3 times a year. Both of these are made up by contributions from members about their Renaults and the many events that are attended, either with or without the club. It is in fact through the Renault's magazine that I actually heard about Brian and his adventures with his Renault 4. Obviously we had a chat with Brian earlier on in this video. Of course there are other French marques that are here on display at the NEC, so in the next part of this video we will be taking a look at some of those. If you've enjoyed the video, remember to leave a thumbs up, and I do very much enjoy reading all your comments as well. The next instalment will be along shortly, so make sure you've subscribed to the channel and do hit that bell notification as well. That way you will be alerted every time a Mark on Motoring video is released. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch up with you very soon in the next video instalment.